those.
Might as well record. We might as well. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
Hey,
How was Africa? Where did you go?
I was in Morocco.
Morocco.
Yeah. Apparently the almond trade is booming there.
Oh.
No, it got slammed during COVID. They're like one of the top 5 almond exporters in the world. Morocco. And you know they import almonds from California?
To use as seeds for their almond trees?
Well, to sell. And what's funny is this is all true, I swear. They pay about 10 euros or 10 Moroccan, fund bills per. It works out to about 10 euros. Is we were doing the conversion per Moroccan fund bills.
Welcome to editor. No. Welcome to Unusable. We're both very tired.
We're exhausted.
It's almost 11 p.m.
We've been recording for a long fucking time, and because we've been sidetracked with social media. No, totally. That's what's causing it.
It's not social. I was on social media. You were doing something else.
I was. I was trying to put my money where my mouth is.
Yeah, you've been gone. Where were you?
I was in the Netherlands and a little bit of France.
Neither here nor there's.
Yeah, the nether place. Specifically Amsterdam.
Amsterdam. What? Yeah. Why? How did you like? I want to go to Amsterdam.
Well,
because you don't smoke weed.
Yeah, I don't. It's not the drugs or prostitutes. I don't care about any of that. I just think that the Dutch people have a very different way of seeing the world, and they're kind of a very different perspective.
Because of the drugs and the prostitutes.
Yeah, it helps. The so-called world's most liberal city. I think that what happens is a lot of folks here don't get like their engineering prowess and their and then how they design cities and stuff. And a lot of the crap I've been going on about, like in my big Fresno video and why it's killing me, I wanted to see if I would get that same sense in a place that does it very different from how we do it in the United States. And that's what today's piece is about. Exactly.
We dive into that in today's piece. But before we get to that, I want to dive into... Did you watch the episode I did without you? What are you...
Oh, sorry. I was so good. Felt good.
Did you watch the episode with Delaney?
Yes. I'm an unabashed Delaney fanboy, so it works out. I was super excited to have her on, and I thought she said a lot of good stuff. I thought you guys had a lot of good points. I wrote... I wrote like a...
You took notes while you were listening, watching?
Yeah, so if you guys want to see my notes, because we're not going to rehash them here. We talked for like 5 hours about it last night. And we're both exhausted. Where are my notes?
I don't know.
Look at this.
Slide.
It's literally...
4 pages, 4 iPhone...
Yeah, 4 iPhone...
Pro Max screen pages.
Yeah, so it's probably close to 2,000 words in notes. And it was all manner of things. It wasn't... So I talked to you about almost all of it last night.
Yeah.
And I think it's safe to say, like, it wasn't doom and gloom.
No.
Like, I think high level, like, I think social media is unavoidable.
Yeah.
Whatever your perspective of it is, it's a competency that we need to have.
Or if you're Gilbert, and no matter what your perspective on what social media is... As what is it?
yeah. What is it for that matter? So for me, it's more than just your Twitter, your Facebook, your Instagram. For example, I'm on Glass. Glass is an app for photographers. It's kind of like
it's a photo social media that's kind of anti-Instagram, or you could say it's what Instagram originally
exactly. And in fact, that was one of my big points, my kind of higher level points. A lot of things that we think are good about social media, and they're perfectly valid today. But they were more indicative of the early days of social media, where, like pre-2012, particularly, all the way back through 2007 and a half to 2008.
Yeah, 2008. That's when I started Twitter.
Yeah, and Twitter so many of us built such great friendships. The Marchive has its roots in social media and Twitter.
I want you to explain what the Marchive is in just a moment. But go ahead and continue your.
Yeah, so there's that.
Beyond social media, yeah.
And then there's obviously there's other good things about it. As far as that goes, like you can still have those things, but it's a lot more work and it's a lot more curated of an experience, especially since the chronological feeds dropped, ads became a thing. and it's algorithmically inclined toward hate effectively. Effectively at the end of the day, that's kind of what it, like, I shared a Veritasium video on YouTube, which part of what I define, as you said, on social media, with Javier, friend of the show, Javier. And I started getting stuff like the craziest shit in my feed. And it was a Veritasium video.
That
was wild.
Okay, so I didn't want to get into it in the text thread when you originally told me and the other Markivians about it, but you've already curated your YouTube algorithm so much that I think that your algorithm is fundamentally broken.
Yeah.
So when you
actually seen what happens
when you leave your algorithm for a single video like a Veritasium video? It's so messed up.
The way I phrase it is, I've reached the end of YouTube. Watch this. So these are 2 recommendations in my raw feed in my home, and all you see is 2 videos. One is Toraja death rituals in Indonesia and Overwatch 2.
You've thumbs downed so much stuff that would be considered probably pretty mainstream YouTube.
It's also not even that. I don't recommend channel.
Right,
so I hard block them basically. And also I found out that YouTube ignores it a lot of times too. It comes up often again.
You have to do it a number of times.
Yep.
Yeah, to actually get it to work.
But here's why I say that I've broken it. If you hit refresh, if you pull the refresh on your YouTube feed, you'll get dozens of videos.
Yeah.
But look, I get like 2.
4 videos.
I get 2. Sometimes on my iPad, I'll hit pull the refresh, it'll be blank.
I don't have anything.
I literally have reached the end of YouTube.
YouTube is like, fuck, man. I don't even know what you like. Yeah. I'm not even gonna try.
But to me, it was still wild that it jumped to. I can't remember what it was.
It was some sort of like hateful.
It was like a legit fucking full like racism radicalization video. It was crazy.
It was insane.
And that was the one thing that it chose, right?
Yeah.
So it tells me
because
like
it doesn't know what else to give you.
Yeah. So it gives me the high meat. Right, so like the things that are
the deepest, darkest corners.
Yeah, that everyone seems to get. It's wild. And I'm kind of like you, where I spend. So YouTube for me, just in short, is like I spend a lot of time in my subscription specifically.
YouTube opens, I immediately hit subscriptions.
Yeah.
I just want to see.
And even on your browser, I think your default page is subscriptions.
I've bookmarked. Yeah.
Right.
So YouTube.com/feed/subscriptions is what I've made my default bookmark in Safari for YouTube.
And so what'll happen is I'll go straight to subscriptions, and I will effectively just live in that, and everything else about YouTube for me is research. So either like I did the whole Casey Neistat program, that was or research
deep dive.
That was like 1,500 videos I watched in the course of like a few months.
But do you get recommended Casey Neistat videos now? No.
I have a sub for Casey Neistat, so I did watch his like last 2 videos that just came out.
Yeah,
which just for me it's just signaling that he's about to announce something to sell you. But I mean, it's pessimistic, but it's kind of true.
Or he's going to announce he's moving back to New York.
Yeah, and he'll have a reason for it. And also, we know he's got the documentary coming out and all that stuff. So that's it's all. He's smart. He knows what he's doing.
At this point, he only hops on when he's got something to show.
Yeah. I mean, he does, as well he should. Yeah, maybe I don't knock it. But also, I think that in order for me to kind of think about YouTube and to be part of it and all these things, I can't not have it at least a raw competency. So that was a big part of understanding Casey Neistat was also kind of understanding what you do and how you do it and the language you speak, which we've talked about on Editor. And I think that's one of the 5 episodes that's still up if you want to hear it. I think it's called Casey Neistat. It's
I think so.
Penultimate or third to last episode or something like that. So, but also the other high level thing was about media literacy and the kind of the pitfalls of media literacy, but couched in the fact that it's very important to be media literate and definitely learn that.
Need to preface what we're about to talk about with please be media literate.
Yes, I think it's something
because I worked on it. CMAX media literacy,
which was I watched the whole thing. It was all the parts. It was extremely well done, so highly recommended. You should definitely link to it.
Yeah.
If not, play the entire
playlist,
6 videos, I think, or whatever playlist in this video right now. Just have it run for 4 hours.
Just
to make sure we do it. Yeah. But I think that the thing is when you kind of get to the next level, and I hate to say it that way, but it is kind of true. Like media literacy, there's some things that I wish it taught. I wish it was taught by default in schools, especially if social media is going to be like a
Big
core competency for the world, the way the
yeah.
world lives. So I do wonder about things like the false perception that media literacy gives us. Like just because we are media literate, it doesn't also mean that we have like domain expertise, that we understand how to read a journal article that's written for, mathematicians or
Literal literacy.
literal domain expertise and literacy, So those are things. There's like degrees in these fields, like library science, legal studies, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That help us.
A whole degree in Dewey Decimal System.
Yeah, not just find the information, because that's really important. And like there's always like this big question of like what is true anymore. There is still a way to find the truth, but also like who's summarizing it, and it's often very poorly done. Like if you read a Wall Street Journal article that talks about, and this is like a reputable paper that talks about, some medicine that just came out, it's almost always
It's the Cliff Notes.
And they're very poorly done Cliff Notes. It's very difficult. So you look for consensus. There's lots of different strategies you can look for, and then that's hopefully gives you some idea of what makes sense. But often consensus tends to be politicized, and it tends to be part of whatever bubble we're in. So I do worry about those kinds of things, but you still need to look. You still need to have that information. You still need to educate yourself on how to find sources and where to find sources. So really, check that fucking video out. One of the things that, no matter what, like media literacy in general, like it does a really poor job of accounting for shifting baselines. So kind of like what we kind of think of as acceptable.
Things evolve over time. Yeah, like you said, what we consider to be acceptable, what we consider to be true.
Right.
But yeah, that's why you don't just become media literate once. The media literacy is an ongoing.
It's like
learning.
Consent. It's perpetual thing,
It's knowledge consent, and you need to check in frequently to make sure you're up on it.
Yeah. I think that's really, really important. Like for example, a lot of people just think COVID's over right now, right? So there's still issues. There's still,
I still have a mask in my pocket and 2 in my backpack.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't have any masks near me right now. Sorry.
You actually just feel left out. You haven't had COVID yet. You're not wearing a mask because you're like, I think I just want to check in.
I got the flu on my trip.
See
though.
what.
So what the fuck?
What this is all about.
But you still need to test negative for COVID coming into the United States. So I actually tested 3 times because I had gotten the flu. So I thought, I should really check this out. Maybe it's my time. But I've traveled and been to like dozens of concerts, and I guess I've been really lucky. Yeah, but
you're just the one genetic.
I don't know. Or I had it really early on.
You're the 3% genetic variability that doesn't actually get it. Yeah.
So
social media. Final thoughts on social media.
Well, just the thing. Like that's the thing. Like that is kind of the final thought. Like the media literacy thing. Like I just want to point out those red flags. Like it operates on the assumption of like that you have to consume, right? That you are consuming. And it does a kind of a poor job of accounting for the fact that like, and this is kind of the journey that I've been going through with like Amsterdam and all this other bullshit that I've been spewing. I made up that word. Spewing.
It's going to be on Urban Dictionary by the end of this episode.
It's like sputum plus, but anyway, I think that the problem is like the way I couched it in our little video that's coming up is it's very difficult to zoom out. I think I explained it to you last night as the coastal paradox, the infinite coastline paradox.
Infinite coastline.
Yeah. And so it's like the idea is like you try to measure the coastline, and I explained this in the video. Take it at face value. You'll hear my explanation in the video, but like the closer you zoom in, the more coastline you reveal effectively, down to like the little, crackles in the rocks, and then even further down to the atomic level. So if you keep trying to measure the coastline, and you can link to the Veritasium video on this, it's effectively infinite, right? And then we talked about like the geopolitical issues. We talked about like changing tides, and there's even the movement of the Earth relative to the moon, irrespective of the tides or seasons and all this stuff. And so I feel like when we're mired in social media and we're just scrolling and scrolling, it's almost like we've zoomed in to the minutia of the coastline. And instead of it being like an effectively infinite coastline, it's like an infinite misunderstanding. Because even if the information's correct and it's real time, which is one of the benefits, for example, of Twitter, that the information's real time, the flip side of that is we're so mired in it and so ingrained that we can't zoom out and effectively measure anything, So maybe I call it the infinite misinformation paradox. So maybe I've coined something new.
Well,
but the other thing, I did have some concerns, which I won't talk about now, but about my concerns about you. We talked about heart to heart, and these weren't devastating things. I actually think Kyle is one of the rare people who's incredibly well suited to benefit from social media. You're enthusiastic about it. You know you know your way around it. You speak the language, but that doesn't mean there's not pitfalls, right?
Yeah.
But personally, my own journey, again, and we talk about this in the video, is like that zooming out, that slowing down. I think I've always been the kind of person that's been addicted to knowledge my whole life, like insatiable thirst for knowledge. And I've always viewed that as like a duty that I have to learn as much as I possibly can. But when I slowed that down, it actually allowed me to view the knowledge that I was acquiring more, I want to say deeply, but it's also, this gets like a little woo-woo, but like that's not what I'm getting at, but it's not even, and it's not some kind of highfalutin, wise midlife crisis bullshit. I'm just saying when I slowed down, I realized that knowledge has a whole different perspective at that speed. And the things I choose to engage in, I don't feel misinformed. I don't feel poorly informed. I've always said, especially in editor, it was one of the running things, the news always finds me. So I just think it's important to keep that in mind. I think Delaney was very right about the concerns that she has.
The whiplash that she gets.
The whiplash, exactly. And there's a lot of good shit out there. There's a very, very low signal to noise, very high noise, very low signal. And it's very, very difficult and time-consuming and frustrating and scary, and we don't know what it does, you know? There's lots of studies, you read all this shit, teens and all this stuff. We don't know, if, like you said, if it's stuff that's been around before that wasn't really measured. But we also know that there's got to be there's some consequence to this, for better or for worse. Yeah. I think sometimes it's for better, for some people it's for worse, but I don't think there's anything wrong ever with slowing down and trying to see what it's like on the other side after a while. Like even you. So that's all I'll say. We should get to the video.
Which is a great transition into this fortnightly piece. We just made it. We collaborated on it together. Yeah. Check it out.
Just as a backup, in case I need to stab you.
Stab me?
Yeah. In case I'm not feeling it. All right, let's go. Look at that. Look at it. It really stabs.
A moment ago, you called it chicken shit, and now you.
Well, I mean, if you bend it at all, it really just doesn't give much confidence. It's just a screw holding it in.
3.5 mil.
Yeah. Little.
I don't know.
Should have gotten the 1/4 inch version.
So I had a friend. I guess he wasn't quite. He was someone I had to deal with in school, basically from like second grade to high school. But in junior high, someone gave him a fake dollar, and then he tried to use it at the snack bar at school.
Right.
And he got caught, and he was sentenced to community service.
Really?
For a weekend. And he wasn't a very nice guy to me, but there were people who were even less nice to him. And they went out and figured out where he was, and went and made fun of him driving by as he was having to do trash pickup community service.
Oh, that's cruel.
Yeah, high school's High school's weird, man.
High school's brutal.
Did you get that? Oh, you got it.
They got me a blunt. Right on. Come here, kids. I always think about cities. Lettuce?
Pray. Oh no, it's eggshell, painted eggshell left over from Easter.
Nice. See, when you get into the details, there's a fair amount of garbage. Don't you think?
The infinite coastline.
Yeah.
How does that idea work?
We'll get into that.
Today?
Yeah.
Or in general?
Oh yeah, look at, what is this? One of those dollar coin chocolate things. The wrapper. So I guess they had an Easter egg hunt here, yeah?
Somebody did.
You see, you said there's no garbage, but you get into it, and I mean, I guess that's what you meant by the infinite coastline in this instance.
All of this is trash if you zoom in close enough. Explain that idea again, because I won't explain it very well.
Yeah, so the idea is with coastline,
the first time you told me this, I thought you said cosine, and I was like,
yeah, the infinite
waves?
cosine.
Yeah, I guess waves go on forever.
It's not even cosine as in trig or waves. It's you cosine alone. That's like being a parent of a millennial. It's the infinite cosine.
Oh,
that's up. I'm kidding. Yeah, there's a ton of garbage here, man. But yeah, so when you go to measure a coastline, that's why I wanted gloves. Because that's nasty.
wait. Oh, you just pulled it off the poker with your hand?
Yeah.
Gross.
Well, I didn't want to. I had gloves. I just didn't bring the box.
You could use a COVID mask.
So when you look on a map and you see like the coast of whatever country or state or province or what have you, it seems pretty straightforward that you can measure the coastline. And in fact, if you go to Wikipedia, he's like, what's the coastline of California?
It'll say X amount of miles.
Yeah, it'll give you a number.
3,500,000.1 mile.
Yeah. But that number assumes it's a lot of trade-offs, and it assumes that you've zoomed out to a certain scale and that you're giving up a lot of detail about what the coastline is. So,
But also the time, like high tide, low tide? No.
that's part of it. It's that's tricky, but yeah, that's absolutely part of it. But more importantly, like let's say there is no tide and it's just a finite coast. There's mountains, there's sand, there's
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff, man-made structures or human-made structures. And if you agree that you're going to zoom out like 200 feet above the ground and whatever you see is what you're going to measure, maybe you fire a laser at it or whatever, I don't know. But you get a certain measurement. And the problem is like the closer you measure, the closer you zoom in, the more the measurement's going to be. And you can keep doing it over and over and over again. Zoom in further and further so you're measuring like down to the centimeter. Each little craggle of rock.
Craggle.
And you end up just measuring, like it truly is infinite. You can get down to the atomic level and start measuring more and more. It's impossible to measure a coastline without some sort of agreement.
Wow.
It's impossible, and let alone geopolitical ones, let alone tides, let alone all these other things. There's so much. It is in itself a paradox. So I often think of social media in that way.
Yeah, so why are we out here? Why are we doing this?
Well, last week I talked about, the week prior to that, the last week was the show with Delaney.
Yeah.
And you two talked about social media, but prior to that, I had talked about solutions.
Yes.
And I did the gym unveiling, which we should check that out.
Yeah.
We're right near it. I unveiled the secret gym. Let me get some of you on cam. Oh yeah, look, it picked up your eye. Right on. And I talked about, like, you know, I'm dealing with this personal struggle, just like some of it's existential, some of it's health, some of it's, you know, my issue with this city and the towns that we live in, and infrastructure. I did some traveling recently,
Yeah.
kind of in that vein.
Yeah. How was?
You kept telling people I was in Australia, which
How was
made me
Australia?
laugh. How was Australia? It was awesome. But I talked about, like, this idea of solutions, and, you know, fundamentally one of the solutions is always going to be sort of taking responsibility for your own actions and creating an environment that makes it conducive for you to be able to do that. And so I did the secret gym video
Yeah.
to give myself a facility, because we put the editor studio
You didn't build a secret gym just to make a video. You made a.
to be used.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got the key to it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go. So I wanted it to be used, but also, like, you know, you can complain and complain and complain about a city, but if you're not really doing anything about it, I feel like it's empty. It's like social media justice. From a lot of perspectives. I'm, like, really concentrating on this, Kyle. If you steal it from me, I'm gonna be so sad. I totally missed. It's like a hard plastic.
I don't know if you're gonna be able to.
There we go.
Oh wow.
It is. It's a bottle
You
cap.
did it.
No, I'm kidding.
Now it's stuck on there.
The social media thing is, like, I'm being silly, but oh, fucking Christ. So I didn't bring gloves. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people ask me, well, what can Fresno do? What can Kingsburg do? What can these places do? Let me grab the grabber. Since I see some stuff at the bus at the the great Kingsburg bus stop.
It's kind of weird that there's only one bus stop in the whole town. It just goes in one big circle and then stops right here again.
Well, so the way this works, you can actually call them, and in some instances they'll actually pick you up directly at your house.
Nice. And drop you off here.
Well, they'll drop you off in some cases where you need to go.
Oh.
So there's Vienna sausages.
Yum.
Nicely done.
No. Oh, you stole it from me.
Such a hypocrite.
What? I waited for you to drop it and then I picked it up that other
No,
thing.
I'm saying I'm the hypocrite. And I feel like I like doing things that check a lot of boxes for me.
Yeah.
You know, where one of these mantras that I keep on regurgitating is keep moving. Mm-hmm. And I also have this notion of, you know, what makes cities better, what makes them more livable, what makes them more walkable. I find this area is fine to walk in.
Yeah.
Especially for Kingsburg. We're in, like, more of the heart of the town.
We're in the coffee pot of the town.
You can see they have a painted bicycle gutter there.
Hey.
Which is nice. Angled parking, which is, like, the worst to put a bicycle lane against.
Yeah.
One of the cool things about angled parking, though, is that if you did want to make captive bicycle lanes, you have a ton of room on these ginormous roads for a tiny town.
Yeah, we could have the bicycle lane on the inside of the angled parking.
Yeah, and even shift this. And the reason why these roads are the way they are is because of this whole concept of warrants and engineering warrants and the idea that you want to have the highest margin of error for drivers as possible. And, you know, it's all in the name of safety. And in fact, it does make driving much safer. It makes road fatalities a lot lower. But the problem is it actually doesn't really account for humans or human scale. Like, we're on this ginormous High Crown Road. It's in a little tiny town of 15,000 people, you know?
Yeah.
And it's, like, enormous. And yeah, they did the worst possible kind of bicycle infrastructure. Look down the bicycle lane, there's a pickup truck that's basically 80% in the bicycle lane just because it parked normally.
It's a long,
You know?
long truck.
You got a long truck, Larry. So it doesn't really do anything, you know? It's super dangerous, and the reason is because we've designed it so that cars can make mistakes. Cars have the highest margin of error.
Yeah.
We've designed all this.
It could do the most damage.
It can, yeah. But the thing is like you could solve all that problem while still making things walkable by not, for example, allowing this road to be 35 miles per hour. It's not 25 here, it's 35, which is crazy. It's right by a park where kids play. It's huge, you know? And the idea of the warrant system is you want to have the highest level of service possible. And people don't want to wait. People want to go as fast as possible. But meanwhile, we use stop signs in the town. And that's a you know, it's a two-way right there. And the idea is you want to give these people the fastest thoroughfare possible. But if we were to make this road smaller, add captive bicycle lanes, add, you know, a much better sidewalk walking experience, divide it off, you know, you actually slow the cars down naturally. And when you start slowing the cars down naturally, like in town, I know it seems counterintuitive. For example, like if you made the speed limit 15 miles per hour, but eliminated the stop signs and used traffic calming, people would actually get to their places faster.
So like a roundabout instead of stop signs?
No, none. You don't need them at all. When you have traffic calming and you default to pedestrians, I know it's difficult to wrap your head around.
There's an intersection and then there's a car going one way and a car going another way.
Well, first of all, we have uncontrolled intersections even in this town, and you treat it like a yield, right? Yeah. But again, that's with a 25 mile per hour speed limit and zero traffic calming. So what you're thinking is correct. It's super dangerous to have that kind of intersection.
The other factors.
But if you're designing for walking, if you're designing for foot traffic, if you're designing for a cycle-friendly city, a transit-friendly city, then when you reduce speed limits, but not just by a sign, not just by enforcement, but by actual design, you can eliminate stop signs. You could even eliminate street lights in some instances and actually make it significantly safer and increase the net time that it takes to drive anywhere, or decrease rather.
You say street lights like intersection lights, not just like...
Yeah.
When you said street lights, I'm thinking like...
crosswalks and stuff.
No lights for
I misused the term. You're
so
correct.
You do want street lights.
Yeah,
you don't need intersection.
You do want lighting where
lights.
possible, and you're not like worried about light pollution and stuff. This isn't the 99 freeway. You actually want some light. But
a nice amber sodium vapor.
So here's the thing.
Lamp.
The idea in most engineering circles is to, again, build for this kind of safety, these grids, stop signs, high level of service, a lot of high speed, and design for the car, design for margins of error for cars. There's a high crown on this road, so it actually makes it difficult because the downslope of the crown of the road is merging into the downslope of the crosswalks, you know, that have the they have the textured add-ons there.
So water. That's why they need the textured bit on the edge of the...
Yeah, but also, like, even if you're in a wheelchair, you're going to into a valley in order to get up the curb and down the street.
So you need some momentum. Well,
you got the momentum because you're going downhill if you make it to the other side. But also, even just getting over a high crown road like that, pushing a wheelchair is really difficult. And so, like, you harm accessibility. But yeah, it's very difficult especially for rural Americans to wrap their head around the idea of something like I just said, because it sounds like just like this radical neoliberal idea.
But I would even think like rural towns would be even more susceptible to it. Like they would be the kinds of people who are like, don't tell me how to drive.
Exactly. But actually what ends up happening, and this is well founded, is you end up decreasing overall drive times. By lowering speed limits and traffic calming, and getting rid of like intersection stop sign type situations, because people, when you design for humans, and not for just cars, people actually do make rational choices, and you're not packetizing cars. So packetizing is like when you have a group of cars, they stop at a light, they wait at the light together, and the light turns green, and they kind of go in a group of 4 or 5 or 6 to the next one, depending on the level of service. Ideally, those lights are timed for continuous flow, but more often than not, we stop at every light.
Sync. Yeah.
It just how it goes, and it's a really, really unpleasant driving experience. And in some other places, it's a kind of a very different take, where you design for humans and you end up actually with a much, much, much more efficient, safer driving experience that actually that makes everybody much happier in general.
Now, how do you know this?
Well, I wanted to kind of see some of these concepts firsthand. So one of the things that I did, where I traveled to recently, was Australia, was the Netherlands.
Oh.
And I wanted to get a sense of how kind of people at the forefront of this kind of walkable, drivable, cyclable, public transit friendly infrastructure mesh together. And one of the things that's happening is the Netherlands is exporting a lot of their engineering efforts, to other cities throughout the country. Minneapolis is a good example, and Portland.
Weird, because Minneapolis is like frozen for 3 months.
Yeah.
Nobody goes anywhere.
Well, so is the Netherlands.
Oh.
It's very cold. I mean, it's not quite frozen for 3 months, but it's cold, and people still ride in the snow and rain. And there are heavy accidents, actually. Nobody really wears helmets there. Because the idea is, I don't want to get sidetracked, though, because the whole helmet law thing is another kind of barrier to cycling, even though it's useful, right, for protecting us. But it's another one of those counterintuitive things.
You get a ticket so you don't ride your bike.
Well, I mean, the more barriers you put to cycling, the worse it is. And really, the idea, again, you solve the problem with design. But in the Netherlands, it's like really hard for them because they have so much. And so that's actually one of the things. I think they had like 1,500 cycling deaths
It's
last
a problem
year. But
at scale.
But those cycling deaths they were like 90%. It was overwhelming. These are I'm quoting poorly these numbers, but it's pretty close. Overwhelmingly were people that were over 60.
Oh.
So it was like also slip and fall kind of stuff.
Sure.
That kind of stuff. They
need the little yellow dots at their intersections.
Well, they don't need them because they're continuous. So there's no curbs. The idea, like in terms of like where you walk as a pedestrian, you don't have to go up or down anything. The cars have to favor the pedestrian or the cyclist. The pedestrians favor public transit. And it all is done by analysis and sensing for the most part.
What do you mean by sensing?
So they're actually taking information, and in some cases cameras, like in the heart of Amsterdam, but every intersection has sensors that don't just know when the cars pull up. We've all seen those in the loops. They do it much smarter, but they also sense when the pedestrian comes up, when the bicycle comes up, when the light rail comes up, the buses, so they have a much better idea of what's actually happening.
Yeah, it knows, or there's a person behind the computer who knows.
Yeah. And they use a lot of kind of intelligence to kind of figure out the best, because a lot of times what we do is we count the wrong things. Like again, we'll count cars. We'll take like speed limit averages. So like one of the ideas with speed limits is early in our highway history, we kind of figured out for deciding on a speed limit for highways, we take the 80th percentile rule, or 85th percentile. And so you measure cars all day, several days, and you say, what speed limit are they going? You take the 85th percentile speed limit, and that's your speed limit. And
that reminds me of a photo I've seen of Fresno, very early Fresno police and people with cars, and very early Fresno police, and the sign said like, please only drive 35 miles an hour. If enough people don't follow the speed limit, then we'll
have to raise it.
We'll have to start ticketing or something.
Yeah, so what they do is they make it a problem of enforcement, which is pretty much what America is notorious for. And enforcement doesn't do a really good job of, it's the same thing with like systemic issues. Like putting people in jail doesn't really do a good job of solving the problem of why they're there in the first place, or taking care of humans in the first place. Yeah. And let alone, the drug problem or what have you. Most people think of the Netherlands and all they think is like prostitution and drugs, especially Amsterdam. And there's so much more to the city than that they figured out that's so different.
We're taking the kids, and I was like, "You're taking the kids?"
Yeah, because Americans just have a real stupid idea of what it is.
Yes, I do.
So here's a good example of, it's not, you get it from pop culture, So it's like, so here's an example. Like we have this like really nice brick walkway.
Yeah.
It's red. There's color distinction. It makes it real clear that here's a place to walk. Mm-hmm. There's actually a bike, really cute Horse bike rack right there, which is really nice. That's new.
Because Swedish people.
Friend of the show, Linus, was talking. He made a joke in the Marchive today about like using paint. A lot of times, what you'll see is they in the design, they use most of it's brick, and instead of using thermoplastic paint to paint lines on the road, they use the actual color and distinctions between the color.
Giddy up, horsey.
And they'll use the actual bricks to delineate the signage, like a school zone or speed bump or what have you, is actually in the brick. They use a different color brick. Instead of using paint. Paint means you need to destroy the road to take it back up, because thermoplastic paint it's really toxic, really, really tough to take off, so it makes it hard to scale anything. Yeah. Whereas they could just pull up bricks in that instance. But yeah, I wanted to understand like what they were doing differently and why, and really get a sense of it. Like you would never see anything like this. This is phenomenal from a perspective of ADA access, right?
Yeah.
Like we think about it and we're like, okay, this is, I can't complain about this.
Sidewalk.
But
safe.
It's steep.
Yeah.
Even if you're coming back from your wheelchair, like this way, like walking is dangerous. Mm-hmm. You want to talk about like slip and fall type stuff. If you're not stable on your feet, this is an issue. Just walking this way. It's like, you also have a ton of like this kind of stuff where you have an alleyway that intersects with walking traffic. You really never, ever, ever see that stuff, especially in Amsterdam, but in a lot of the Netherlands. And what's interesting is people are like, well, they design their cities that way. Yeah. From the ground up. Of course they can do it. We can't do that to our cities.
But Amsterdam's been around
hundreds and hundreds of years, like thousands. But what's interesting is if you look at pictures of Amsterdam from the late 70s, early 80s, it looks a lot like America.
What?
It's packed with cars, shitty infrastructure, shitty sidewalks. And they decided that they wanted to change it. This was out of hand. Like what they were doing was trying to copy American infrastructure and designing for cars in this explosion of the automotive future. But they were one of the few countries that made a decision to design for humans instead. To emphasize cycling, emphasize walking. And it's like a huge difference. Like what it means to live and breathe an area like that. And you know what I realized when I went there is like I felt like it, like I didn't want to overstate it, but like it's hard not to, but like I felt like calm. I felt like the problems that that the issues that I'm having here were solved. I grew up in a walkable, public transit friendly town.
Yeah, so what I was going to say, you grew up in New York.
Yeah.
I have a friend who spent most of his life here in the Central Valley, and then his wife got a job in New York.
Yeah.
And he said one of his first trips with her out there to just see like, well, what's it going to be like to live in the city? And he said he had to tie his shoe. And so he bent down to tie his shoe.
But did he just stop in the middle of a sidewalk?
And he stopped by a wall. It was a sidewalk, but he got close to the wall.
Uh-huh.
And hey, loud motorcycle.
I have comments on that too, but it's interesting. But
And
go on.
he put his hand on the wall to pick himself back up, and he
Got
could
syphilis?
he could feel the city,
Oh,
and he liked the way the beat of the city felt in that wall.
interesting.
And he was like, "Yes, I think I'll be okay here."
Didn't you? Is this the same friend that? Or no, this is someone you mentioned. You sent from Twitter that had. Maybe they moved to San Diego, and they said something about how different it felt. Like they were from Fresno, it seemed. How
Yeah, that
different
was
it
another.
felt.
Yeah, that was some other friends recently moved to San Diego, and yeah, felt that way.
Yeah, and so it's like New York is another like. The thing is like you see a lot of this in New England areas and older America.
Pre-America.
Yeah, and stuff that like
cities.
foundational pre-United States, where you see people. You see these old beautiful neighborhoods and stuff like that, and a lot of times what happens is like people that from out west they're like, well, we already designed for the car, we can't compete with that. So how the fuck are we supposed to change it? Well, one good example is what I talked about here, is not building roads like this, especially in a small town. Or when you build a new development, you build it like fixed in time with single family homes and sidewalks and stuff like that
Suburbs.
that are completely unchangeable. And you've made this perspective for the next 20, 30, 40 years when the bill comes due for all the infrastructure that you financed.
Yeah.
And it's very, very expensive. So, but the solutions I wanted to get at are you start small, you know? Like I think that one of the most important things a city can do to emphasize change is meticulously maintain itself. One of the things I noticed about the Netherlands and Amsterdam is it's a world-class city. One of the top 10 most busy airports in the entire world, and the airport is uniquely close to its major city, Amsterdam. It's also an extremely high density city that has its own housing problems and stuff like that, even though it's built fairly vertically. And you don't feel overwhelmed there. You don't feel the traffic. You feel a lot of like cycling traffic. And as a pedestrian, you know, they say red means dead, right? So like
What
they
does that
use
mean?
red to indicate where pedestrians aren't supposed to walk. So red bricks will be, please don't walk here, for the most part.
It rhymes in English. Does it rhyme? What language do they speak in English?
They speak Dutch.
Does it rhyme in Dutch?
I don't know. I don't think so. But that's what they tell the tourists, like me.
Oh yeah,
And-
they need to simplify it for us.
Because because I talked about the high cycling accidents. The road fatalities or crash automobile fatalities are extremely low. They're like counted in the dozens. And this is a really nice grabber. I don't know if I feel like the ergonomics of this, but it's still really nice. But what happens is like people just don't look. They don't realize, especially from America, they don't realize that there's going to be so many bicycles at such high speeds. And so they get hit,
Damn.
you know? But yeah, you'll never see anything like this, especially in a small town. But it was like this. It's which is striking. But I think that one of the things you can do, especially since like I said, check a lot of different boxes, keep moving, you know, solutions, these kinds of solutions about what makes a city. Like it's hard to get a sense of anywhere if you can't walk it, if you don't walk it. It's hard to get a sense of like
Get your boots on the ground and get to know.
yeah. So by walking around this small town, by walking around Kingsburg, I'm getting a sense of like, look straight up the road, right there. Sorry, I know you just set up the shot. Look right here. Brand new developments all through there. You walk straight up this sidewalk. Let's walk there. Fuck it.
Yeah.
It just comes to a stop.
What?
There's no more sidewalk. You know? Looks like we wrap around that way.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Where the sidewalk
That's why I was
ends.
shocked because it's brand new development. So like the city code says you have to put in a sidewalk now.
Yeah.
But you'll see areas all over Kingsburg where they just stop.
Wow.
So I'm glad. I was worried because like straight ahead, I thought the sidewalk was no more,
It might.
which happens all over Kingsburg. So that's why that was my default thinking. But I feel like, yeah, walk every single block in
you're right
town.
here, and you got your supermarket right across the street.
This is good. I think it's good. But that's what I'm saying. Like, why would you choose to build, like, that's why, remember I said Kingsburg's like teetering right on the edge, you know?
Yeah.
You do have a market here. You have some decent sidewalks. Like I came here because this is a uniquely nice area of Kingsburg that I think has some of the best it has to offer. And yet, look at this road behind you. Brand spanking new. It was just paved. And zero deference to virtually anything but cars. And these are nicer sidewalks. I think these are some of the nicest sidewalks in town. You can see once we get into the older stuff, it gets much narrower.
But still,
across
the bike
street,
lanes are gone.
Yeah, bike lanes, of course, are gone. They're rare here. Across the street, you have a pretty wide sidewalk, but it's in front of commercial property.
Yeah.
But what's nice about this commercial property is at least I could ride my bicycle up to the front door. There isn't a bike rack.
Yeah.
Instead of having to walk through a giant ass parking lot, I do have the option. Or here, I could walk across a super dangerous street that's designed for people to go as fast as possible.
Wait, you missed.
Oh, looking ahead. So these sidewalks are, they're broken and craggly. I don't mind that. I'd rather have the sidewalk, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, people can trip and fall there. Nobody's gonna pay to redo these.
They don't even have the orange spray paint warning. Oh, this one.
No, this one's like,
This is real bad.
okay, this is beyond my threshold. That's like genuinely super dangerous.
This is actually like, I'm scared.
Yeah, and there's a fair amount of
The flowers
Kingsburg.
are cute, but very dangerous sidewalk. Okay, now we're back to better sidewalks, but they're skinnier now.
Yeah, they get skinnier, and then yeah, we do lose the, oh no. They get skinnier, and there's like overgrowth and stuff like that. It's uncomfortable to walk here. Like, we got this driveway, right?
That's steep.
Super steep. And what it is like, concrete's expensive to pour.
We're running out of
So-
sand.
Yeah.
I don't know the,
So like, look at this. It's all pretty new landscaping and everything from the church. And they have a lot of public events here. The street facing sidewalk is super narrow. There really isn't any like, this feels very uncomfortable for me. And even just like being a pedestrian crossing that giant street.
Yeah.
Like, why the fuck does
And
this
there's
road need to be so huge? It doesn't. And again, the reason why they do it is because of those warrants. Because there's designing for margin of error for cars.
yeah, there's not even like a walking for either direction.
Yeah, and the sidewalks do for sure end over there, where in the older building,
Oh yeah.
and those are more good examples. But again, this is a lot of this stuff is newer development, so you do see the sidewalks, but you still see driveways interfering. There's curbs there. There's no ADA access there at all, I don't think, which is weird.
Whoa.
Huh?
Weird for a church.
Yeah. Interesting.
Well, I'm hungry.
Yeah.
Grab a bite.
Sure.
What sounds good?
Whatever you want, man. So I don't know. Anyway, I did want to understand that, and I think I've got a much clearer picture of the things that I was trying to. I just don't want to walk through there again. And tell me this doesn't feel like uncomfortable.
Yeah, this is a very wide street with no lights. If it was any darker.
And like, okay, if you had to choose a good road for street racing in Kingsburg, Wouldn't this be a contender?
This is a pretty good, yeah. Race my old souped up Honda Civic.
I don't know. I really hope you get a chance to see some of the stuff I'm talking about, even in New York. I did stop in Paris. That sounds awful. Because I wanted to get a sense of, well, I was in the Netherlands and I just got on the high-speed train.
Oh yeah.
I made sure I wanted to take all the transportation in the Netherlands it has to offer.
Well, someday we might have a high-speed train in
From where to where?
Bakersfield to Merced.
Yeah, and then will we have a
Scenic Bakersfield's oil fields.
Yeah, I mean,
and Merced's I don't know, Tesla supercharger. The restaurant, the restaurant attached to a theater. That was pretty good in Merced.
I like that place a lot actually, and I like that little drag. Like it's a really nice place to walk around.
Yeah.
You know. Even like Los Angeles, the fact that there's so much stuff right at the sidewalk level as opposed to trying to find, and again, Los Angeles is like notoriously one of a very car dependent city and a car culture, but there's still a lot of walkable areas there.
Yeah.
Santa Monica, Silver Lake, Glendale, Old Town Pasadena, like the list goes on and on, you know?
Yeah.
This supermarket's been here for many decades. And it's nice.
The bigger Save Mart hasn't run them out?
No, far enough away and family owned. I think my wife's brother used to work there.
Oh.
They have a little Chinese takeout place inside there too.
Ooh.
When you design for cars, this is what you get.
Yeah.
I can't emphasize to you enough how different it is in some other places. Like, I was lucky to live in Park Slope, and that's like one of the nicest neighborhoods in all of Brooklyn, in all of New York City. And like, I lived in an apartment building, and I'd go down to the exit the apartment building, and walk 100 feet.
Did you have an elevator, or did you have to climb the flight of stairs every time?
That building didn't have an elevator, so it was a 4th floor walk up. But I lived on the 2nd floor.
Oh.
No big deal. But I'd walk down. I was on 6th Street. I'd walk over to 8th Avenue, take a left, going to 8th and 8th. There's a bodega right on the corner.
Yeah, everything you need right there.
Everything I needed.
Don't need anything else.
200 more feet. There's the F train entrance. That's if you go down to 7th Avenue, the other side of the F train
Sorry to
entrance
interrupt
is
you.
there.
I just noticed, look, the little bus stop does have
It's got a camera in it, too.
Camera, but a little solar panel array on top.
I think it's just to feed that camera.
Oh, okay.
And it's just a networked camera.
Watch.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I never thought about, like, I have friends that live there still that never got a driver's license.
Yeah.
One of my friends has never driven a car.
Yeah.
In her whole life.
Now, did you see? There was that shooting on the New York subway recently.
Yeah, that was one of those stops that I would go on the F train.
Some news folks hopped on the subway and were interviewing people riding the subway like the next day, and they're like, "Hey, are you riding the subway?" And they're like, "Yeah." "What do you think of the shooting?" Like, "It's scary." "Are you scared?" "Yes, I'm very scared." They're like, "So why do you still ride the subway?" And they're like dead stare at the camera and they're like, "'Cause I have to."
Yeah. I mean, you could argue the same thing about, like, I just rolled a Tesla 3 times on a 99. Why do I still get in a car? That's statistically far more dangerous.
Because you have to.
You know? Because I have no choice. And I'm lucky to have something like this.
Yeah.
You know?
Fancy.
Super fortunate. But, like, wasn't always that way.
So how do you feel now that we've picked some trash?
I feel better. I'm glad we kept moving.
Yeah.
I'm glad I walked. I'm glad I got a little bit more of an overview of this little town.
Yeah.
I think it's important to just keep our eyes open about this sort of stuff, because it's too easy to take all this for granted, take cars for granted. Look, at the end of the day, you're not going to take the American suburbs and convert them to fucking transit-friendly New York cities. We're stuck with cars, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not knocking
they'll still have worth.
Yeah, they still have value. But there are options. Like there are options, and one of the ways to get to those options, especially in small towns, I feel like start small. Start small. Start one block at a time. Start by cleaning up your town. Start by walking around it and getting a sense of like how difficult is it to walk? How dirty is it? Like is it meticulously maintained? What are the values of the town? And you can tell so much about the values of the town by how clean it is.
Yeah.
You know? And you could also tell by how many people are walking with you, you know? And
there's some folks walking over here.
I think they're going
To the burger
out of the
store.
house to maybe a car.
Oh.
I think that's a great way to start. And then there's whole concepts like block in a box. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but like
Oh, when
there's
cars get backed up and they're backed up into the intersection, blocking the box?
Oh, that's don't block the box, but like the block in a box. I'll send a link to it.
Okay.
There's tactical urbanism. There's all these kinds of things, and I know a lot of these ideas seem like very neoliberal, like, and that it puts a lot of people off. But what's interesting is like a lot of these ideas, even if you have very conservative values, they're extremely compatible with them because it brings a lot of like raw,
So
long-term wealth to the city
Yeah.
instead of just financing it to death. A lot of these people, especially this is a very conservative town, if you ask them if they would take their pensions and finance the city's future with their money on the line, they would be like, fuck no, because it's extremely dangerous and it's effectively a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
But that is what is happening.
That is what's happening. But I don't know. More on that definitely in the future, I think.
All right.
Thanks for letting me ramble.
Yeah, I enjoyed
Thanks for
it.
picking up garbage with me.
Of course. Thanks for organizing it.
Appreciate it. We'll keep doing it. I plan on walking the whole city, the whole town of Kingsburg.
Every street, every alley.
Every street.
Let's do it.
That would be perfect for me.
Yeah.
So
Cool. But I am hungry. I haven't eaten dinner.
let's go.
Let's go. Gilbert, what is the Marchive?
The Marchive is, to me, is like, go ahead.
I'm in it and I don't fully understand what's going on sometimes.
The Marchive is many things, but it is, in one quick way to say it, is like truly one of the great, wonderful benefits of social media. So we, early in the days of, fairly early in Twitter days, we met a bunch of different people, and we became so close on Twitter.
People with similar...
In a similar circle, similar interests, and so on.
Yeah.
And we...
Mostly technology related.
Exactly. Technology kind of, and liberal arts kind of like brought us together. Like almost like the original like Apple, imagine that. And,
The crossroads of technology and liberal
the
arts.
crossroads of AR and services revenue.
Cult.
Anyway, so it became so close that we traded real phone numbers, real information. Javier, again, he was on a previous episode. We met in person when I was working in Palo Alto. He was there at the same time, so we met frequently in person, and we became very close friends after that. And then just so much has come from it, and it's grown to currently 6 people, fairly diverse backgrounds. 3 of us are on the West Coast, 3 on the East Coast of the United States, and we chat in a very private thread in messages every day. And there are subsets of the Marchive.
iMessage, yeah.
Yeah. So all on iPhone. And it's become kind of like what a lot of people experience when they dive into communities, when they dive into Discord, and really become close with people and develop real, like, legitimate friendships.
Even though I see you at least once every other week,
Yeah.
and we see Javier every couple of months, but we have never met in person with the other 3 on the East Coast.
Right. Scott and I have been in the same airport before at the same time, ships crossing in the night. And Linus and I have been like 45 minutes from each other in Los Angeles. We never met.
Wild.
Linus and Mark live like 2 hours from each other. Mark and Scott are childhood friends, so they know each other. And obviously you and I go way back. And then, but it's become this very, it's almost like a combination of a writing prompt and journaling and therapy and fun. we've all become, whether we like it or not, fairly close. And it's the reason why it's called the Marchive is Mark, one of the we'll call him the founding member, so to speak. He archives everything.
He takes the iMessage data, backs it up, has a text doc. We can ask him to look something up.
And he does. He's really good at it.
How long ago did we talk about this thing? And he'll have it in a few minutes.
And often I'll have these weird, like very specific memories of like how many times a word was said, and he'll like fact check me. And like today,
search it,
today we had a big search today on the dad chive, which is a subset of the market. There are all these permutations.
Yeah.
There's like the minus Gilbert one.
There's one
like,
without Gilbert. Yeah.
There's all the permutations. We all have direct messages with each other, and then like different combinations depending on subject and what have you. And it can become confusing and overwhelming, but no more so than a dumbass Slack or or a fun Discord or what have you.
Yeah, Discord that's messages are just flying so fast you can't keep up anyway.
Yeah.
And what does the Marchive mean to you?
Oh, it's one of the most cherished things I have in my entire life. Like, this is something that we've traded. Like, there's a real attachment there. We talk probably more than most people talk with even people that are directly in front of them. Yeah.
When we've just visited Javier to work on his office, the second day into it, he just kept saying, "Man, I really appreciate you coming down. I like, it means so much to me that you two are here." And I'm like, "Hey, man, we don't see each other every day. We don't see each other every week, but we talk to each other every single day." And I know it doesn't feel like a traditional like close friendship.
Yeah.
But what even
does that mean
closest
anymore?
Friend.
Yeah.
Because we talk literally every day. Like, sometimes I'm slammed and I don't check in for a day, or he's slammed, he doesn't check in for a day. But basically, practically, it's every single day we are chatting. And then, since iOS 12, where there's the little FaceTime button in the corner of every single chat, I think it was Mark accidentally pressed the button and we all got a notification. Mark's trying to chat. So we all, like, 3 other people hop in. I think you were the only person to not hop in, but Javier, myself, Scott, and maybe Linus didn't either. But we all hop in like, "Hello, Mark, you hit the button. What, is everything okay?" And he's like, "Oh, it was an accident, but I love to know that I can at least summon half of the Marchive
at any time." Yeah.
If I needed to. I'm like, "Yeah, man.
Yeah.
We talk every day."
The running consensus is that I will meet Scott before I meet anybody else on the East Coast Marchive.
You think Scott would be the first one?
That's what the consensus is.
It's probably the same for me, because I'm probably with you when you go.
That's also very likely too. Yeah. So I don't know. What about you? Does it? You say the same thing.
I think those two stories, I think, showcase how much it means to me, these people, and in this platform, and the way that we talk, and this squeaky chair, and it's very cool. I appreciate you inviting me into the fold.
That's important. Yeah. So I don't think this is I could be an order of magnitude off here, but I think the last time Mark did a count, we were over 1 million words.
I don't doubt that.
And that was a while ago. So I would not be surprised if we're well over 2 million words now.
I would not be surprised. Yeah.
And I'm talking, like, we have, during a keynote, Scott will be at work.
I'll be at work,
He's been close to 1,000 messages during
we still haven't hit someone having 1,000.
We've been about 100 off. Yeah.
I know. It's been
We're close. Yeah. So it's just there's weird things about the counting tapbacks and stuff like that now and all that. But
it's easier to get to 1,000.
But yeah, it's important, and I think that it's helped me grow a lot as a person. In some ways, I've literally grown up in the Marchive, even though I'm 40 now, and it's like I feel like it's been a decade. I don't think it's been quite that long, but it's been close.
It's been a while.
I think Twitter 2013 or ish, 2012ish, 2013. Mark's going to have a field day on correcting me on all this.
He'll have the numbers.
That's why he is. It's literally called the Marchive as a result.
Mark's archive.
Yeah, he is the truth of all this stuff.
But Scott is the president.
Scott is the president, and you vote.
And here we
you should
are.
vote for him.
Yeah. So, yeah, I appreciate you letting me just kind of take the reins on the last episode.
Well, when you told me
and
Delaney, I was like, perfect, done.
Yeah. And I appreciate all the feedback on it, too.
Yeah. That's good. There's a lot, but
Yeah.
it's something I think about incessantly.
Yeah. But social media in cities and then the self.
And knowledge.
And then the knowledge. They're all analogous.
Peace.
I'm so tired. This has been Unusable.